Hello, my name is Sheryl Dickey, and I'm an attorney advisor with the Office of Clinical and Pro Bono Programs. And I'm here today with the Cyberlaw Clinic team. Morning, everybody. I wanted to ask you folks a few questions as students are thinking about which clinics they would like to register for the next academic year. And perhaps we could just get started with Jess telling me about what your clinic does and who you folks serve.
Thanks, Sheryl. We're excited to be here and excited to talk to students as they select clinics for next year. So the Cyberlaw Clinic has been around since 1999. We're one of the oldest clinics focused on technology law and policy in the country. And we see our mission as focused on the legal issues that come up at the intersection of technology and social justice. So that can entail a huge range of projects, and it really depends on which supervisor the students end up working with, because we each have our own areas, although we work a lot collaboratively as well. So our projects range from intellectual property to technology and human rights to privacy, security issues, civil rights, especially First and Fourth Amendment work, as well as local government and state use of technology. So it's a really exciting, dynamic practice that touches on a lot of the stuff that folks are reading about in the newspaper in terms of content moderation, technology and human rights issues, internet shutdowns, et cetera. And we offer a huge variety of work from more litigation type projects. We have a couple of active litigations in the clinic now, to client counseling, to transactional drafting. And we ask students when they come into the clinic what they're interested in, and we try to give them a mix of those projects and areas that they're really focused on developing, as well as a few curveballs here and there.
And Mason just touched on a little bit about what students do in the clinic, but I wonder if you could tell me more specifically about what students do, what a day looks like for them, and any examples.
Yeah, thanks, Sheryl. So my name is Mason Kortz. I'm a clinical instructor. As Jess pointed out, we have an extremely broad mandate in the Cyberlaw Clinic. That means that we also see a huge variety of work. Most students will take on anywhere from 2 to 4, even 5 projects, depending on the number of credits they enroll in. And we really try to make sure that students have a diverse array of work before them. So one thing is that students will often be using, seeing multiple types of work throughout their time at the clinic. So often these projects go through multiple phases. We really emphasize putting students in control of the project. So most projects start with scoping and project management questions, getting to know the client, understanding what their factual situation is, and what legal questions they have. So there's often a strong interview and kind of client interaction component early in a project that then will lead to application of more, I guess, sort of like classic legal work, which could be, researching and drafting a client advice memo. It could be drafting a contract for them, such as an IP license. It could mean litigation, which could be anything from a pre-litigation workup to assess the strength of a client's case, drafting a complaint, doing motion practice. We've gotten involved in appellate cases as amicus, drafting briefs on behalf of everything from retired judges to coalitions of professors to nonprofits. So really, in terms of what a day looks like, it really develops over the course of the 3 months of a student's time at the clinic, and will almost invariably include a lot of communication with clients, coworkers, and sometimes opposing counsel. Will involve research and drafting. And we also, one of the things we pride ourselves on is giving students the time and the space and the opportunity to reflect on what they've worked on, and take those lessons and move forward with them, especially if they're taking on a second or third project throughout the term.
Great. And Chris, I've got a couple of questions for you. And some of the skills Mason already highlighted, but I wonder if you feel like there's a core set of skills that students are able to develop at the clinic. And also, I wonder if you could tell me more about who does the Cyberlaw Clinic serve? Who are the clients and who do they represent?
Sure thing. Thanks so much, Sheryl. I'm Chris Bavitz. I'm the managing director of the clinic, and I think that the theme maybe we're hearing from both Jess and Mason and come through in your questions too is diversity and breadth. We've really strived over the time that the clinic's been in existence to grow, but not to specialize, not to kind of focus too much on any one substantive issue area, one type of client or one type of skill set, but to kind of give the students the opportunity to do a little bit of everything. And I think that's reflected in the breadth of the kinds of work that each member of the staff does. So Jess alluded to the fact that we do a lot of different substantive kinds of work, from intellectual property to privacy to tech and civil liberties and human rights. We have a really broad range of clients that could include individuals, a software developer or a researcher who's interested in gathering data from a website and wants to understand whether they're running afoul of the law by doing so. A lot of collaborations with some of the most significant NGOs and advocacy groups in this space. As well as mission-driven startups. Given sort of the nature of the clinic's mission, we don't do quite as much work for sort of pure commercial startups, but we do a lot of work for folks who are developing technology in support of some sort of a public interest or social justice mission, a tech and human rights platform, for example. And then to the question about the skills that students develop, I usually group those into sort of 5 buckets, and we've touched on a bunch of them already. One is litigation. So we litigate cases. We learn what complaints and answers looks like, how motion practice works. We think about discovery and all of the advisory work that goes along throughout the course of a piece of litigation. We do transactional work, which means negotiating and drafting agreements or advising clients on the types of existing agreements, Creative Commons licenses, open source software licenses that might be appropriate for them in their work. We do policy advocacy work. This could involve amicus brief writing, as Mason mentioned, trying to kind of influence the outcome of a court decision or submit a filing to an administrative agency in support of a change to a rule or even drafting model language for statutes and that sort of thing. Client counseling is the 4th one, which we've talked about a little bit. This is the client who comes in and says, I need to understand my risk. I'm building a tool. I'm embarking on a project, and I need to understand, what are the bounds of the law? What are my compliance obligations? And might I even want to go beyond the bare minimum legal compliance? And then finally, the 5th one is public education and engagement. We think a lot about trying to serve our individual clients, which is obviously our primary goal when we're retained by a client, but then we love to find opportunities to make available resources to a broader array of clients who and stakeholders who might have issues similar to those our discrete clients are facing, and allow them the opportunity to take advantage of those resources as well. So that's sort of the buckets as I see them.
Terrific. And Kendra, I wonder, for some students, this is all brand new. And I wonder if you could talk more about what kind of supervision and mentoring do students receive in the Cyberlaw Clinic?
Sure. So students, all students have a primary supervisor. So one member of the teaching team that they work with primarily, although oftentimes students are staffed on projects or work with a variety of different members of the teaching team, and we're all like open to chatting with whoever. And usually students will meet with their supervisor at least once a week for a one-on-one meeting to talk through sort of what they're working on. And, I think all of us put a big emphasis on mentoring and teaching. Like, that's why we're clinicians. Like, that's what we love. One of the things we love about our jobs. And so oftentimes what that looks like is students sort of taking the lead on starting prep work or thinking about a client meeting, and then getting feedback on an agenda or an approach, being able to do the client meeting, and then ending up getting feedback afterwards around strategies around how it went. We also have a sort of more formal way of giving feedback. So we have mid-semester and final evaluations, which, although they are sometimes can be a little bit intimidating for students due to the sheer number of things we look at, the goal there is to actually help students set their own goals for what they want to do in the clinic, what skills they want to improve, what's important to them. And I think that's something I think we're all really mindful of, and I hope we're really successful with, about helping students gain comfort with stuff that might be totally new to them, like meeting with a client for the first time, or revising a contract, or any one of a variety of different things that folks have already mentioned. But yeah, if you have questions about the mentoring experience, you can obviously reach out to us, but I feel like in some ways the best people to reach out to are our former students. Because if you have friends or upper class folks who have been in the Cyberlaw clinic, I think they can tell you pretty directly about like what that experience was like and how much support they got from their supervisor and from the teaching team more generally.
And thanks for mentioning that about students as a resource. We also will have a list of students who have done all of the clinics on the OCP website, and you can reach out to them if you don't have other friends or other folks from your other classes that you can talk to about it. You can always reach out to those folks.
On the point about hours, yes, students can enroll for 3, 4, or 5 credits in the clinic, and each of those translates to a different number of hours over the course of the semester. It's sort of true of a lot of the HLS clinics, 144, 192, or 240, if my math is correct, and averages out to something like 12, 16, or 20 hours a week. And we have students log their time and try and keep pretty close tabs on them. If they're in the early part of the semester, clearly going to be working more than they signed up for, we encourage them to kind of increase that credit number. And if as things are going along, it looks like they're inclined to register for fewer credits, we can drop them down partway through the semester as well. And the only other thing I'd say, just sort of logistically, which we've talked about a little bit, is we focused on sort of the broad array of things that we do, but we, each student ends up kind of going down certain rabbit holes, working on some very specific issues and some very specific projects and tasks over the course of the semester. But we create a lot of opportunities both through the clinic seminar and in the clinic itself for the students to get to engage with one another, to teach and learn from one another. So to talk about the projects they're working on, this includes case rounds in our seminar. And it's a great way if you're, deep in the weeds on a Fourth Amendment and technology question, but you hear, across the room that someone's working on a project for a documentary filmmaker that involves copyright and fair use. It's a great way to make sure that you're getting to learn about both of those things, even if your specific focus is pretty narrow.
Well, that's great. I wonder if anyone else has something to add, or if we've covered it.
I think the thing that I would add is that I think a lot of folks, when they think about the Cyberlaw clinic, like expect that they need to have a computer science background or know how to program in order to come work with us, or that the material will be so technical that they won't be able to sort of fully engage with it. And I think we don't require a computer science background for a reason. Many of the supervisors don't have a computer science background. I think, in fact, most of the supervisors don't have a computer science background. And we're excited to work with students and to help students find parts of technology law that are interesting and exciting for them, independent of whether they're interested in the sort of technical, deep nitty-gritty, or whether that's not their thing. And I think the other thing I would say is that, we try to choose a range of projects, some of which are more technical, and some of which aren't. And part of our job as supervisors is to help students get up to speed on any technical material they would need to do that work. So please don't let fears about not having the right kind of background mean you don't come hang out with us, because we would love to have you. And we would love to, work with you on whatever you want to work on, whether that is skilling up technically or whether that is avoiding the computer code like the plague. All of those are reasonable options that we can totally accommodate.
Even more so, I think, some of our best students have been folks who came into law school thinking about being tax attorneys or environmental attorneys. Increasingly, technology interacts with all kinds of substantive areas of the law. And so you don't have to be somebody who sees themselves as an exclusively technology lawyer in the future to succeed in the clinic and to find benefit in it.
Yeah, I would add to that to say, one of the great things about us having such a broad base of interest from our students coming in and such a broad mandate is we also have a lot of collaborations with other clinics. We have, we've worked with the Immigration and Refugee Clinic. We've worked with the voting rights externship, which will now be an in-house clinic, which was really exciting. We've worked on housing law issues. We've worked on a lot of things that the International Human Rights Clinic, a lot of topics we work on touch on these areas of expertise, and we've been able to really leverage the different interests and expertise of our students and the clinical programs as a whole to create some really exciting relationships.
Well, thanks, everybody. It's been great to talk to you. I really appreciate your time.
Thanks, Sheryl.
Thank you.